Welcome back to No Apologies on Deck. I am your host, Lori Hins. With me, remoting in from Fargo, across the state, about 3 hours away from Bismarck, is Jake Schmitz. And Dr. Jake Schmitz is a parent in Fargo. And I just want you to know, Jake, I'm looking forward to talking to you because I have seen you talking to me lots on Facebook. I've been watching a lot of your videos, and you have some great intel and information for people in Fargo.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a privilege to be here, so I'm super excited.
So we're going to talk a little bit about budgets and the Fargo Public Schools tonight. What can you tell me about where they're at right now with their budget?
So this actually blew my mind when this last board meeting, they had their financial reports. And so I start looking through their budget, and blew my mind. Fargo School District has a budget, an annual budget of $164 million,
wow,
which is insane. I mean, I was polling my patients, like, what do you think the board's budget is? And I was getting, I don't know, $5 million. I'm like, you're close. So $164 million, of that, $133 million is just in salaries. And so right off the bat, I'm like, that's a big freaking number.
Mm-hmm. That's a big red flag, too, actually, because that's telling you that the students are not getting those benefits, that the teachers and the administrators likely are getting those benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when you look at the administration has their budgeted amount for salaries is it's almost $8.5 million a year. So clearly the administration is getting paid well. And that's where, we start talking about, one of the most recent issues, and I think we'll talk about this, but substitute teacher pay. Mm-hmm. And Fargo's, I would say, arguably one of the lowest in the state for how much they pay their substitute teachers. It was $112 a day. This last board meeting, it got raised to $130 for non-certified teachers and $150 for certified teachers. But the point is that we were one of the lowest, and yet we still have one of the biggest budgets. So why was there a gap?
Right. Well, obviously, you know your numbers, so which tells me that you decided, probably as a dad, to get involved and start looking at some of this stuff and taking a deep dive on it. What really spurred you on? What was the kicker that was like, all right, that's it. I'm gonna be going to school board meetings, or at least watch all of them.
Yeah, so for me, it was centered around the mask mandate. So Fargo was one that we had the mask mandate. We kept it the longest. All the data kept saying that it's not effective, it's not working, it's not moving the needle. We have West Fargo that's like across the street who didn't have a mask mandate, and their numbers of COVID was like virtually identical. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't moving the needle, and the board just continued to ignore parents. They were just completely saying, no, we're not going to listen. So that got me irritated, and especially, I'm a chiropractor by trade. I've got my master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. I was presenting data. I'm like, this isn't working. And so because of that, and I was being ignored, I thought, you know what, there's a lot of parents that just don't know what's going on. So I started doing a recap video for every single school board meeting and even some of their governance committee meetings, just saying, hey guys, this is what's happening. This is what you need to know.
Mm-hmm. So did you find that after you started disseminating that information that people were like, wait, what? Whoa, did they start, really getting on board?
Absolutely. Yeah. I get dozens and dozens and dozens of private messages on Facebook from everyone from teachers who were afraid to be public with this stuff to, even people with, counselors or other parents, and be like, please continue doing this. It's moving the needle for us. Like, we need to know what's happening. We don't have 4 hours to watch these meetings. So thank you for, so I'll do a 30-minute video. Like my one from this last board meeting was 33 minutes long. And it's like, yeah, but that's stuff you need to know. And every parent needs to know and get involved. Because if you're not involved, then you're basically saying you're okay with whatever happens to your kids. Exactly. And I'm not okay with that.
Well, I love to hear that, too. And you know that you're not alone, right? You know that all over the country there are mama bears and papa bears all over the place who are just like, enough of this. I think COVID, if there was one good thing about it, right? It just blew up the awareness of what's actually going on with our schools.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think that it needed to happen. We needed one of those big events where people are like, all right, enough's enough. Time to wake up, waken that sleeping giant. And it's sad. But these school boards, a lot of these school boards, and there are some great members, don't get me wrong, and I would even argue the ones that I don't like, they probably do deep down care about kids. So I don't want to make it seem like they don't. But at the end of the day, they're not listening. They have their own agendas. And that's something where if you're not paying attention as a parent, there is some stuff that I could talk for hours on this, but there are things that happen. If you don't know, then your kids are going to be, inundated with this information that you probably wouldn't be okay with.
Yeah, I have seen some stuff recently. Actually, on this program, we had a gentleman who is a legislator from Hawaii not very long ago, and he was talking about horrendous stuff and stuff that I kind of asked him not to even say on the air because I didn't want to hear it, not because of the viewers, but because of me. I do not want to hear those words. And he could, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's stuff even in Fargo. There was I don't know if you saw this. There was a Grand Forks public school. He was a teacher, and he was saying some of the CRT stuff that's being taught to teachers in Grand Forks. So this stuff it's in our state.
Right. Right. And and it's really hard as parents. I mean, I have older kids now, but when my kids were school age, I remember thinking to myself, why am I so apathetic about this? Why am I not, getting involved with it and stuff? But you're living your life, you're going on, and then you trust your schools, you trust them.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sad reality is we go into, we vote, we only vote every couple of years, and we think, oh, everything's going to be good. And you know as well as I do, Lori, that voting is name recognition. So I'm going to vote for whoever I voted for last time. And so that's how we have one board member who's been there for 23 years.
Really? Wow. Well, here's the thing, too. So I know that it's a call to action is like parents, if you feel like, okay, you're getting up to speed, you're watching Jake Schmitz and all of his videos, you're learning what's going on, you're probably qualified to go in there as a parent and go in and probably run for school board. You're probably qualified to be able to make a stand and at least protect the children from masking, from CRT and things like that. And I think people just need to be empowered and just know, you can do that. You can do that. And you could probably do, if you're watching those meetings and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I could totally do better than that. They probably could, right, Jake?
Absolutely. And it's like you said, we're not alone. And so these, I know of 3 parents who've decided to run, actually no 4 for Fargo who are running now, strictly because of the fact that they're like, wait, we can do this. Like we can take this back. And with our coming up election, if we pull 3 of them, all of a sudden, there we go. We just flipped it.
So when is the next election? Is that a June primary type one? June 14th?
Yep. So I believe the 14th. June something.
Yeah, I think it's June 14th, I think. But that's anyway, so this is another opportunity. So what are you saying to parents who just want to get involved somehow and they don't know what to do? What do you tell them?
I always say first things first is just watch. I mean, the hard part, I don't care what board we're talking about, or we're talking city commission, or if we're talking like my chiropractic board. These things, it's boring. They really are. So if you don't want to go watch the entire thing, you can watch my recap on my personal Facebook page, just Jake Schmitz. Outside of that, just go to these meetings. Like just go. Our Fargo meeting is online. I know that some of the other school boards across the district do it online. You just watch it. They get posted. You can watch it after the fact. Just start paying attention to what these guys are saying, these guys and gals. And then once you do that, you'll get activated because you'll realize,
do you think that do you think that over, this is what I think, we've got 1 minute left here in this segment, but do you think that people over time have just been like the lobster in the pot and boiling, and it's like they've taken more power, they've taken more power, they've taken more power. Now they think they're in power over your children because you no longer are.
Yeah, and they feel like they're entitled to that power. And that's a sad reality. Until we take it back, they're going to keep it. You
want to talk a little bit about this Fargo School Board meeting. So take it away and explain what we're going to see.
So in this clip, this is our most recent board meeting that happened on Tuesday, the 22nd. And so what happened was there was a parent that came and absolutely, and by the way, she's running for Fargo School Board, but she tore into the board about their lack of action around increasing the pay for substitute teachers. And the board did nothing. They did absolutely nothing outside of there was 2 members that wanted to increase pay and the rest of them said no. So she ripped them a new, you know what? Yeah. And so in this clip, Jennifer Benson is going after one of the other board members saying they have a right and they're trying to hold us accountable to take an action. And then one of the other board members didn't like it very much. So go ahead, let's watch the flick.
So in terms of our superintendent came to us and said there was an operational crisis.
Oh, it's God. Oh, all right. Okay. 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 Should we try it one more time? I think we had just a little glitch there, but we're gonna try to run it one more time. I'm like, oh, there I am.
In terms of our superintendent came to us and said there was an operational crisis here, and I think the problem hasn't been solved, even though this is a great solution. Immediately, right? This is a solution or a option versus doing nothing. And so I think The point is the public, Nikki, was holding us accountable to doing something now. And we didn't even direct the superintendent to do that. We voted down a motion and it was talked about at multiple meetings. And so I think that it's fantastic that the public held us accountable for making sure that something is done immediately. Because to prolong the conversation and to let it just do nothing was unacceptable. Let us do nothing to address it. And the fact that we're still going to be faced with perhaps 30 subs a day, that's still problematic. I mean, we have been talking about this for a long time and for multiple years. And so it needs to be talked about more often and not just talked about. We need to have solutions, viable solutions. And the fact that it rose to the level of defining it as a crisis for our students and our teachers, and we still sat on it for months, I think the public is saying is unacceptable, and they're right.
Nikki?
And I guess my only response to that would be, yes, it is critical. It has been critical for years, far before COVID. And do we know the real reason we're having shortages? So for us just to walk in and provide a solution and call it good, put a Band-Aid on it, doesn't help. And that's irresponsible of us. We just need to find the right solution and to keep working for it. I don't believe there was ever a passion on anybody's behalf to let it simply die. We were just working that evening and that solution wasn't workable. I know I myself had asked several questions and asked for this to be ongoing, and I was told it would continue to be looked at. So I don't think anybody wanted to let it die. But simply to walk in, put a Band-Aid on it and call it good just because we need to do something right now, I think is irresponsible of us.
So frustrating, isn't it? It's got to be maddening for y'all.
Guys, it's so well, I mean, because again, her position was that it was okay to do nothing. And it's like,
Right.
well, for us to, I use the analogy in my video, if we have a hole in the boat and we're taking on water, it's irresponsible to just try to cover the hole up because, it's not a long-term solution. Then drowning is the solution? Like,
Right.
oh my
right.
gosh.
Well, it's easy, I think, sometimes for people, particularly on boards or groups, to just kick the can down the road and say, you know what, we'll work on it next time. We're going to try to make a better solution. Maybe we can come up with a better idea. But then nothing gets done.
No, and it's so frustrating when parents are saying, well, and a little bit more of a backstory is the teachers have been coming to the board saying, we have to have a solution. I'm talking months, not just this recent. I'm saying for months, if not years, they've been saying, we need help. We're overworked and underappreciated. And they, like you said, they kick the can down the road. They don't ever come up with solutions. And Jennifer right there saying, we made a motion. It was David Paulson made the motion. Jennifer seconded. Everyone else voted no for $200 a day. And the point was, you could have picked any number, 170, 140, 150. They did nothing. And that's unacceptable behavior for a board, especially when they know it's crisis.
So they made a stink about the cost. That was the big deal. And yet, as we did in our earlier segment, we're talking $164 million budget.
Yes.
So it's hard to be credible, isn't it? I mean,
and what's sad is, so of course I look through the budget because I'm like, you know what, I'm a dork, so I look through all this stuff. They currently have about $570,000 in their budget allocated for subs. David Paulson was saying, this is going to cost us $360,000. And so I don't know if you know this, but 360 fits within what they had their budget. And they made a big freaking stink about it. Like, oh, we don't know if we have the money.
That's amazing.
Like they had it in their budget.
That's maddening. It's so frustrating. Well, I don't think anybody would have known about that $524,000 had you guys started not started looking at it. So this is again another clarion call for people to get involved.
Yeah, and what's great is that the state law, they have to post agendas, and so the agendas are posted usually on their district website. And I started look at the agendas. I start clicking on the links. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? If it doesn't make sense, I'm just going to look at it a little bit more detail. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is hold them accountable. Show up to board meetings, talk, ask questions, email your board members, email the district. It's not really hard stuff to get involved. It's just got to be consistent and pay attention. That's pretty much all it is.
So you've spoken obviously before the board before.
Yep.
Do you have advice for people? Because there's a lot of people who just do not like that public speaking. They can be as passionate as the next person, but they do not want to get up and be on video and be in front of their. What's your advice?
So I've had people that they wanted to speak, but they didn't know what to say. So I offered to write up a thing for them to say. I've had other people who have like, oh, I want to say this, and then they'll bring it to me and I'll say, all right, I'll add it to what I'm going to say. Or so it's either find somebody who can be a spokesperson who doesn't mind that, like I don't mind, or you can just type it up, clack it up, email, and just send it to each one of the board members and just say, I'd like you to discuss this and hold them accountable to it.
Yep, great alternatives. So your Fargo Public School Board is going to be up for election in June, and you've got some folks running. I guess, do you want to advertise their names? I mean, you're welcome to do that if you want.
I could do, yeah. So you can go with Alexis. She's got her. So how about this? If you just go on my Facebook page, Jake Schmitz, I've got the 2 that have announced so far, or 3 that have announced so far, and there's a 4th one that's waiting to announce. But I know this person I can't say yet. But there's 3 so far: Devin, Alexis, and Kristen. That are all their stuff is on my page. If you just go and scroll through, or just say, "Who are the people?" I'll definitely come. I'll talk to you about it. I'm absolutely okay putting it out there.
Well, that sounds good. And honestly, I think people just need to get involved. And now is the time. You are not alone, people. You're with a lot, right? Now's the time.
Yes, it's never tomorrow, always now.
Exactly. Well, thanks, Jake. I knew this was going to be interesting, and we will have you back so you can keep us updated on what's going on in the Fargo Public School System. So thank you very much for being on the show.